Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give it just a moment to allow the other participants to join us, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Bobby Lynn Kekik. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of Orientation and Student Onboarding. And I'd like to invite Mia to introduce herself before we get started today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an incoming third year, and I work with the orientation program to put on together the orientation program for your class.
Wonderful. So Mia and I represent the orientation team, and we are working with some campus partners and campus experts to bring our Falcon live chats to our incoming community members. We work with a lot of families, but we know that sometimes our new Falcons, our new students, will be joining us for these live chats or the recording. So welcome to everyone. Today our topic will be on supporting your students' academic experience at Bentley. The Falcon Live Chat series is a way for us to bring a little bit of Bentley to our family members. We're so grateful that we have a global community and that we're able to bring a little bit of our Bentley experience and community to you. We recognize that this time that we are streaming live is not going to be accessible for everyone. So we are recording these sessions and they are posted on our Bentley Orientation YouTube channel, which you can access by going to bentley.edu/orientation. And we have a direct link there, or if you're able to search, you'll be able to find us that way as well, just Bentley Orientation. Throughout the presentation, we will cover a lot of content, so we do ask that you hold your questions till the end, but you will have the opportunity to type those questions in using the Q&A button, and we will make sure to get to them. With that being said, we recognize that folks may have some more individualized or personalized questions or experience. What we do ask is that folks are viewing this content, being able to use the resources through our new student advising and registration site. And then we will have some opportunities for your student to connect with staff closer to registration. But please feel free to post those questions and we will get to as many as we can. If you are viewing this as a recording, we will also put information in there to be able to reach us via email with any follow-up questions that you might have. And when in doubt, if folks are not sure who to connect with, you can always email orientation@bentley.edu and we will get you connected with the appropriate team on campus. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started and introduce members of our academic services team.
Hi, everyone. I'm Valerie Camo. I'm one of the assistant directors of undergraduate academic advising. I use she, her pronouns. I've been at Bentley for 15 years. My first 8 years were in the Office of Undergraduate Admission. And most recently, I have the privilege of working in an advising capacity with students. And I also happen to be a Bentley alum.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melody Smith, mostly just go by Mel. I just hit 1 year, last month, of being at Bentley in the advising position. Before that, I actually worked 7 years in housing, and 4 of those years were here at Bentley. So I'm very, very happy to be back and working with our Bentley students again.
So first and foremost, on behalf of Academic Services, Mel and I just want to welcome you and your student to the Bentley community. We are thrilled to be able to participate in this event and look forward to working with your student throughout their time at Bentley. This slide is presenting an overview of what we're going to cover, with sharing information about each of these topics today, and then conclude with an opportunity for, as Bobby Lynn suggested, for you to ask questions, and we'll address as many as we can today. So we want to start with just an overview of what is academic services and what is our role in the Bentley campus community. Our office consists of undergraduate academic advising, which is what Mel and I will be talking about today, graduate academic advising, and then academic support services. Academic support services would also include disability services. We have a combined office that is located in Jennison Hall, which happens to be the primary classroom building on campus. And so in that capacity, it's quite convenient to students as they are coming to and from classes for them to stop by and connect with us. So now we want to talk a little bit about how your student can connect with us. So in terms of undergraduate academic advising, a common option is for students to create an appointment. This is an appointment for up to 30 minutes in length. And these appointment opportunities are best utilized for more complex discussions. If a student's looking to do some long-range academic planning and figure out how to incorporate all of their academic goals throughout their time at Bentley, the appointment would be with a professional academic advisor, and there is an online technology platform that students would utilize to schedule that appointment. We also hold drop-ins each weekday between 11 and 3 p.m. These drop-in sessions are typically staffed by a peer advisor, although the professional advising team will jump in and assist with those drop-ins during very busy times of the semester. So for example, the first week of the semester during the registration period. Drop-ins are best for quick or time-sensitive questions and don't need to be scheduled and would not be scheduled in advance. They're limited to about 10 minutes. So again, a topic that maybe a student can quickly cover with us, or if they're just finishing up a class and they want to know kind of, you know, what's involved if they want to add a minor, right? So some of those things that come up spur of the moment, they can come in. We meet with students on a first come, first served basis. So that becomes a really convenient way for students to connect with us, you know, for any questions that they may have that are on the briefer side of things. And then, of course, we have our general email account that students are invited to contact if they have a question. For email, this tends to be best for more simple and straightforward questions. Sometimes what will happen is if a student is looking to address a more complicated or complex issue, we will invite them in to come in to drop in and talk it through or to schedule an appointment. But if they have a quick and straightforward question, emailing our general account or their assigned advisor, we'll talk more about that in a moment, it tends to be a really convenient way for them to get that information. We do ask that students allow, that's like 1 business day for us to reply to their email inquiry. I mentioned that academic support services is also housed in our office. In this case, students can email the assistant dean, Leslie Doodle. She's a fantastic resource for students. Or in the case of disability services, students would reach out to the director or associate director of disability services here. If your student had accommodations at their prior school, please be sure that they connect with one of the Stephanies if they have not already done so. And then graduate academic advising, we do have undergraduate students that will connect with our graduate colleagues. There's an opportunity for them to schedule an appointment the same way they would schedule an appointment with an undergraduate academic advisor. And during the academic year, they also have drop-in advising. So this becomes a wonderful opportunity for students who are thinking about graduate studies at Bentley to start gathering information about that earlier in their undergraduate experience. Maybe junior year is probably a pretty common time that students would look into that. So now we want to focus a little bit more on the undergraduate academic advising function and how we help support students and work with students for a variety of academic matters. There's a lot of items listed here. I just want to highlight probably some of the more common discussion topics or items that we meet with students about. For new students in particular, our conversations may be very focused on helping them adjust to college academics, or if it's a new transfer student, helping them adjust to college academics at Bentley specifically. Sometimes these conversations are very much course focused, but oftentimes it's also about time management, because that tends to be one of the areas where students need to tweak a little bit and draw upon kind of what worked for them in their prior studies and maybe make some adjustments now that they're in a new academic environment. We address a lot of questions that students may have about which courses they should be taking at which point in their studies to try to make sure that they are progressing through their degree requirements as efficiently as possible and also meeting key prerequisites along the way. We spend a fair amount of time helping students determine their major or minor, and sometimes even revisiting those decisions with students if their original choice, if they discover that that's maybe not a good fit for them and not what they expected it to be. As I mentioned earlier, we will oftentimes through an appointment work with a student to do a long-range plan. And this becomes a great opportunity for us to sit down with a student and identify, if they want to do this particular major and a minor and study abroad, how do they fit all of that in, and make sure that it's a manageable workload and that they can accomplish their goals in a timely manner. We will oftentimes offer suggestions for students about how to approach their classes or their studies, particularly if they find that a course or semester is proving to be a bit challenging. In addition to the forms of outreach that I had mentioned previously, the drop-ins, the appointments, the email, I do want to highlight two forms of communication here. First is our monthly newsletter. This is the advising brief newsletter. This goes out to all students via email and oftentimes contains key dates and information that's helpful to the majority of our students. So really encourage students to check their Bentley email for that information. The other example that we do, which is basically taking advising out to the students, is our pop-up advising. So during key times in the semester, we really try to meet students where they are physically, and provide other convenient opportunities for them to connect with us and ask questions that they may have. And again, that information is included in things like the newsletter, in signage, and emails that they get from our office. So now let's spend a few moments talking about our advising model. All students are assigned an academic advisor within our office. That assignment will be posted in Workday, which is one of our technology platforms, by the start of the semester. In most instances, the student is not required to meet with their assigned advisor, but we are a resource for them that we encourage them to utilize whenever it might be helpful. Students have an assigned advisor, but if they happen to make a connection with another advisor in our office, they can continue to work with that non-assigned advisor. Sometimes that happens coincidentally. They meet the advisor at pop-up advising and they connect well, and want to continue working with that individual. Sometimes the student will just find that another advisor has availability that works better with them, and that's how they form the connection. All of that said, the student has the assigned advisor as a resource, but has some flexibility if they do make a connection and want to meet with somebody else in our office. First year students also have their Falcon Discovery Seminar peer leader as a resource. This is a student leader who is in the classroom with the faculty member and the students once a week, and are able to provide a great opportunity to reflect and share their experience and help new students learn from that and gain a little more insight about all things Bentley, and hopefully feel comfortable settling in to campus as quickly as possible. So we really encourage new first year students to ask questions of their FDS peer leader, and take advantage of that resource. Our transfer students will have something similar in their transfer seminar. There's a transfer seminar peer facilitator. This is a student who co-teaches the class, and the student was a transfer student to Bentley themselves. So they know what it's like to transfer into the institution. They know what it's like to feel like you're new to Bentley, but not new to college, and want to feel like you're settled in as quickly as possible. So again, a great resource for new transfer students in that regard. And then throughout students' time at Bentley, we really encourage them to connect with their faculty that they see in class each week, and staff members that they might meet through various interactions. One of the great benefits of being at a relatively small school like Bentley is that sense of community and seeing familiar faces, and that faculty can get to know students as individuals and what they're interested in and what their passions are and what their goals are. And so we really encourage students to make those connections with their faculty in particular. It might be quick conversations before or after class, going to office hours, seeing them at events, and to, again, build those relationships throughout their time at Bentley. And also don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions, particularly when students are new. I think they will find that anybody at Bentley is open to answering a question or helping to point them in the right direction if they're not sure where to go for their question. And so we really encourage students to make connections and never hesitate to speak out if they have a question that we can assist with.
Okay, so now that you all have kind of gotten a little bit of background about our office and how we interact with your students, we're going to change gears a little bit and talk about preparing for upcoming registration. So there's a few things that we need all students to do prior to registration taking place. And by registration, I mean registration day. The act of registration is a process, right? We have preparation, actual registration day, and then some things that happen after, which we'll get to. So of course, your student should be reading and referring to the new student guide and making sure that they're completing everything on their checklist. Students should complete their critical reading and writing placement essay, as well as already have completed their math selection survey. If your student has questions on either one of those, they should be connecting with the math department or the English and Media Studies department. If they need help connecting with those offices, then they can reach out to us and we can support with that. Students should also be sending all prior credit, so AP, transfer credit, IB credit, to the admissions office. Students will learn more specifically about prior credit through our new student advising and registration site, which again, we'll talk about more later. At this point, students should only be using their official Bentley email address. This is where we specifically send all information. So anytime we need to be notifying students of anything, we will not be using personal emails that they might have shared with Bentley during their application process. We will only be using their new Bentley email. Then the last thing that they'll need to do is watch all of the videos and review all of the resources that are on our new student advising and registration site, which you might be wondering, what is that? I've never heard of that before. Well, let me tell you, because it's brand new. So we're so excited. So in early July, students will all be receiving the link to this site. As you can see, there's a little photo of the site. So if they are a first-year student, they will click one path. If they are a transfer student, they will click another path. The purpose of this site is actually to share information about the registration process in helpful short videos so that students can kind of take in that information at their own pace. They can also go back and re-review any video that they might still be confused on or might still have additional questions on. The reason for the two different paths is because some things are slightly different for first-year students and it is transfer students. So please make sure that you are selecting your path and only watching those videos in your path so that you don't get confused by other information that might be shared. So during the month of July, again, leading up to registration day, because there's, again, prep work that we need to do, your student should be taking the time to do a few following things. So reviewing the resources, like I just said, our sites, our registration videos. We also have additional information just on the Bentley general website. So students can also refer to that if they kind of need additional support or have further questions. Explore the registration software. So we do use registration software like Schedule Planner. Again, students will learn what Schedule Planner is through our advising videos. They should create several schedules with various course options, which they'll learn how to do. And they should attend drop-in registration advising that's going to be taking place on Zoom. For any questions or clarification, they should also be joining those Zoom drop-in advising after finishing and reviewing all of the videos and all the resources on our site. We have packed a lot of information in there that might be a little overwhelming, but we promise it's there so that everyone can educate themselves and take in the information, again, at their own pace. Some helpful tips that your student should not be doing. Please don't let them fall in love with one schedule, one course, or one class section. This means that sometimes there's a lot happening. Students might really love this one schedule and it's the only schedule that they want, but we have to remember that there's a lot of students registering at the same time and classes do fill up. So students should understand that they might need to have some flexibility and move things around when going through the registration process. We also do not recommend using Rate My Professor, or RMP for short. The reason for this is because typically Rate My Professor is on either end of the scale. Either a student has had a really, really great, superb, outstanding interaction with the professor, so they want to write about it, or a student for some reason from their perspective has had a negative or a not so great experience with a certain professor or a certain class and they want to write about it. These are kind of the one-off situations, and you're not actually getting a full picture of what that class or what that professor actually entails. So we do not recommend and actually suggest not using that website. Our last kind of note leading up to registration is please don't let your students assume that they can avoid early morning or Friday classes. There are numerous times that we know that students do not want an 8 a.m. class. They might want to sleep in, we understand, but unfortunately, we do need to work with what is available at what time and what sections. So we need to make sure that students are taking their required courses for their first semester here. And so unfortunately, they might need to be picking classes at times that are not favorable for them, but it's to make sure that they are set up for academic success while at Bentley and meeting the requirements necessary for them to complete their degree. So the fun stuff, day of registration. So here's kind of a table for everybody. So as I mentioned before, registration is not just a one-day event. We talked about the preparation. Now we'll go through registration. So there are 2 specific days that people should keep in mind. Monday, July 24th is when transfer students will be registering. And then Wednesday, July 26th is when first-year students will be registering. The day, like the flow of the day is still going to be the same. So before 10 a.m., so before registration begins, of course, check internet connection, make sure that everything's all set, check your saved schedules, you'll learn what those are, and have any support documents available. Again, how we mentioned not falling in love with one schedule, maybe you have some classes on a backup sheet that you want to have nearby. During registration, please be sure to only use one browser for the registration software. So by that, we mean using Schedule Planner and Workday. If you have multiple tabs open or multiple browsers open, it can actually freeze things and slow things down, and the system gets confused on what's happening in what tabs, so only use one. Have backup options available, as I mentioned before, for classes, and also know that our registration support Zoom will open at 10 a.m. So right as registration is opening for students on both of these days, advisors and other campus support staff will be on Zoom, so we'll be able to help everyone. What that means is we know sometimes you might not want to actually talk with someone, you just want to send off an email and get a response. Email will not be the fastest way to engage with us that day. You will want to jump on the Zoom to get the fastest support available. After 3 p.m., registration support on Zoom will end. However, registration will be open until 10 a.m. the next day. So registration will be open for a full 24 hours. And then complete schedules, right? So if you only have 4 classes on your schedule, we want to get a 5th one added. But what we suggest doing is, just because registration is open for 24 hours doesn't mean that you should go back in there and click around and try to move all classes around. Typically when students are doing that the first time they're registering, they actually then end up removing classes that we say are a necessity for their first semester, and it causes more confusion in the long run. So we always say make sure your schedule is complete with 5 academic courses, and then worry about making adjustments or things later on as we can support students with doing that. So final reminder, registration closes at 10 a.m. the next day, and then students will actually not be able to alter or change their schedules until Friday, September 1st during orientation, when then the academic advisors will be available to help students make any adjustments to their schedules. And students will actually have the opportunity to adjust their schedules on their own until Monday, September 11th. So from September 1st until September 11th, we'll be able to adjust schedules with students based on what's available at the time. Okay, last part, everyone. What happens after registration? So what's next? What happens? Your student registers, they have a schedule, and now you're like, okay, cool, we'll send you off to campus in a little bit. But there's actually a couple of things that we're still finalizing. So For new students, for their first semester, advisors actually personally review each individual student's schedule. So that will start the day after their registration. So for example, transfer students register on July 24th. Their schedule review will begin on the 25th. First year students register on July 26th, which means that their schedule review will begin July 27th. During the summer, just as a reminder, Bentley is only open Monday through Thursday, so we will only be reviewing student schedules during these days. By August 8th, which is just a couple of weeks after we start the schedule reviewing process, that's when this process will be complete. So what will happen during those couple of weeks is that students with incomplete schedules or ones who don't align with our advising guidance, for example, they have maybe 4 classes in one day or 3 classes in a row, or maybe they decide they want to take 3 evening double block classes. We will actually be reaching out to those students again via their Bentley email address to either make changes to their schedule or suggest for them to start thinking about possibilities on how they want to change their schedule for when they get to campus. Because some of these things we do need to complete before they get here, and other things are just suggestions that we want to provide to the student that they can then make on their own. Students should be responding promptly so that, again, if their schedule needs to be adjusted by us, we can do that in an appropriate amount of time. And by August 8th, if a student has been checking their Bentley email and they have gotten no emails from anyone in undergraduate academic advising, that is not bad. That means that according to us who reviewed their schedule, we see that all their required classes are in there. They have no concerns in terms of their schedule layout or their classes layout. So if we deem their schedule to comply with our guidance, we will not be emailing students. So students should really just be checking their emails from us for those 2 weeks. And then by August 8th, if they don't get an email, they can just continue knowing that the schedule that they picked is the schedule that they will continue to have for the fall semester, unless they decide to change something come September 1st during orientation.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about what students can expect when they arrive to campus for the start of the fall term. So Mel has been referring to the Friday of orientation. We do have a lot going on academically on that day. All new students will have an academic presentation on that Friday. And as Mel had mentioned, we will be offering drop-in schedule assistance for students who are looking to make an adjustment to their fall schedule. We want to make sure that whatever adjustments they're making still align with the courses that they should be taking in the fall, and that represent a balanced schedule so that they don't inadvertently find themselves overloaded on a given day of the week. As I mentioned earlier, we do have drop-ins on weekdays between 11 and 3. This first week of the semester, so classes begin on Tuesday, September 5th. So that first week of the term, professional advisors will be assisting students as well through drop-ins so that we can help as many students as possible who are looking to make adjustments prior to that September 11th ad swap deadline. We had mentioned earlier that the Falcon Discovery Seminar peer leaders and transfer seminar student facilitators are fantastic resources for new students, and new students will meet those individuals in the first week of classes. So the transfer seminar and the FDS 100 will both meet right away, and so students can start making those connections quite early. And as we had mentioned, that our office and the students assigned advisor will be a resource for students throughout their time at Bentley. As I alluded to earlier, there are very few instances where a student would be required to meet with an advisor in our office. So we really do encourage them to connect with us whenever they think it might be helpful, even if it's not absolutely necessary. And now we want to spend a few moments talking about some tips and ideas for students first year at Bentley and how they can be academically successful, recognizing that there are many elements that contribute to that, but really just want to highlight 3 of them that might be helpful for you to share with your students and maybe coach them through in the coming months. So first, we've talked quite a bit about connecting with advising. Our relationship with students really is a partnership. Both parties working together to help the student achieve their goals and successfully navigate academics at Bentley. And so some of the things that we encourage students to do is really look for emails that contain academic information. We know that college students get bombarded with emails, and a lot of them are talking about fun events on campus that we certainly want them to participate in. And so I think one of the keys to adjusting to college life is really being able to pinpoint what are the emails that can be ignored and what are the emails that a student should pay attention to. And anything that has academic information or comes from our office or the registrar's office, we really encourage students to take note of, because there's probably some really key information that they want to pay attention to and make sure that they're abiding by. All students will have what we call a degree works audit. And what this is it's an academic record that captures their degree requirements and what they've completed, either through prior credit or as they progress through their Bentley coursework, the requirements that they take each semester, and of course, the requirements they have left to complete. This is a fantastic resource that students can access 24/7 and really confirm that the courses that they're taking are helpful to understand what they have left to complete. So we pull up the degree works audit every time we're communicating with a student, whether that's in person, via email, etc. And so the more the student is familiar with that audit and understanding what it means and what it's saying, the more robust our conversations can be about what they're going to do to complete those remaining requirements and to complete the coursework that they're in. We encourage students prior to those discussions to really prepare questions that they have for us. Then we can maximize our time together. Take notes during the conversation, because we talk about this information all day long, but we appreciate that these conversations contain details that are probably not top of mind for many of our students throughout their day. And so really capturing notes, however they choose to do so, I think can be helpful for them to refer back to and tap into as they're trying to make use of the information that we've discussed in our conversation. Another element that's key to academic success in the first year is the adjustment to college academics. Your students obviously have done fantastic academic work. That's why they're coming to Bentley. And so I think for many students, when they come to Bentley and adjust to that first semester, they're doing a lot of building on their proven study skills, really reflecting upon what's worked well for them in high school or their prior college, and then paying attention to make adjustments and tweak things when they need to, if they think that another approach might work better. And that can take some time and some experimentation, nothing too dramatic, but just making tweaks here and there based upon how college academics work and how that might be similar and different to their prior academic experiences. I mentioned earlier on the idea of revisiting time management, and time management being a topic that we talk a lot with new students about. One of the key things that's quite different with college academics is students are in class fewer hours in the course of the day, but there's more time expended outside of the class meeting time. And so what happens on a practical level is it feels to the student like they have a lot more free time. But in reality, that may not be the case. And the challenge becomes, how do they manage what feels like a lot of free time, knowing that they have a lot of academic work that they need to accomplish when they're not meeting in class. And also knowing that one of the key goals that any new student would have is making friends and making connections and becoming part of the community. So they want to carve out time for that as well. General guideline that we use with students is that for every hour in the classroom, they should expect 2 to 3 hours of work outside of the class. And so as they extrapolate out, you can see how what appears to be a lot of free time maybe isn't so much. And that piece can sometimes be surprising for students. And again, it's managing that discretionary time that can be a little bit tricky. We talked at length about making connections with faculty. For some students, it might take some practice to do this. And so sometimes we're having conversations with students about how they might navigate outreach to faculty, whether it's via email or in person through office hours. We also encourage students to learn about academic resources on campus. We have a series of learning centers that, other than the student's course instructor, tend to be the first point of contact if the student is finding content in a particular course to be a little bit difficult. So for first year students in particular, they might utilize our math center if they want to revisit something from their math course. We have a writing center. We have a learning center that includes economics, accounting, and finance coursework. And those can be valuable resources for students to tap into, to ask clarifying questions, and again, to have another layer of support academically, in addition to conversations that they might be having with their faculty member. Bottom line with any of that would be, if the student's not sure what to do, if content is proving to be a little bit difficult for them, they should connect with us, whether that's via email, via drop-ins, and we're happy to point them in the right direction. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, the first semester really is critical for students to test their approaches and then start to refine things after that first semester based on what's working well for them and what's not. I think winter break in particular can be a key time to reflect back on the first semester, do an assessment. What are the approaches and strategies that the student wants to continue? What are the things that they want to change a little bit? So the goal being that at the start of the spring semester in January, they're really hitting their stride academically and outside of the classroom as well. And then the third category that we want to highlight for new students is really taking time to explore academic opportunities available to them at Bentley. The first semester, even much of the first year, is a fantastic time for students to keep their eyes and ears open and really dig into anything that sounds interesting. Start to research, gather some information, ask some questions, poke around on our website. In particular, the first semester is not a time where we're looking for students to make decisions about what they want to study for a major or a minor. Some students will come to us having that information already in mind, and that's great. But really just kind of keeping their options open, maybe ruling out anything that they know they're not interested in. Sometimes that can be a huge help in their decision-making process. For some students, as they explore academic opportunities, this is going to confirm everything that they knew that they wanted to, study in college since their first year of high school, and that's great. For some students, though, it might present new opportunities they didn't know existed, and offer up some new angles and approaches to things, whether it's a major or a minor or study abroad, that they perhaps want to explore instead. And so they're using this research and the asking of questions and talking to other students who've maybe been at Bentley for a year or two to begin to articulate how they want to spend their time with us, and what are their academic goals. What are the things when they think out a few years and they're crossing the stage at commencement, what are the things that academically they really want to make sure that they've accomplished? And part of the joy of our role is that as a student starts to think about that, we can help them consider criteria to help reach those conclusions and then help them come up with an approach where they can hopefully achieve those goals in the timeline that they're with us. So I want to take a moment, thank everybody, turn it over to questions. Lynn, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add before we jump into questions.
Yeah, I really just wanted to thank you both so much for sharing all of this information. I think it's so helpful to ensure that our family members, our support people, our guardians are able to be partners in this experience with their students so that they can really have this knowledge and information to help to support their student when they might be asking these questions. We understand that students have been with their family members for however many years, and just because they're coming to our campus, that doesn't stop on that day one. So really just appreciate the time that you both have given to share this comprehensive information, because the more we can help to educate our family members to be good supporters for their student, hopefully the more seamless experience our students will have too. So really appreciate you both sharing that, and now I want to open it up to some questions that we have.
Yeah, so we already have quite a few, and there's already a little bit of a trend happening. So I just want to address, and Val, I think this is perfect coming from your, transfer experience too over in admissions. So I think there's a little bit of confusion for our students who will be joining us in January at Bentley. So we have just a couple of questions under that category. So some people are wondering if the January admits, if they're referred to as transfer students, what do they do about looking to see about prior credit and if that would be accepted? And also, when do they register for classes?
All right, so we'll try to tackle all of those together. Students joining us in January, we will have a new student registration process and event in January. It'll be right before the start of the spring term. And so communications about that, I believe, typically begin in December. So it'll be a while before those details come out, but there is a separate process so that we have just-in-time information to guide those students. If those students are looking to take classes elsewhere in the fall, they would work with the Office of Undergraduate Admission to get those courses looked at and essentially pre-approved. I think the admission office might even require that students submit that information. The reason for this is that the Office of Undergraduate Admission assesses all prior credit to determine if a student is eligible for credit, or they administer the assessment process for that. And so to make sure that the coursework that the student is intending to take is eligible for credit, that would be an important communication to have with the Office of Undergraduate Admission. And then similarly, if the student does get approved to take courses elsewhere, and if the courses are confirmed to be eligible for credit, the student coming in January, we need to make sure that they send the official transcript for those courses to the admission office so that that credit can get finalized. As for whether a student enrolling in January is considered a first-year student or a transfer student, that determination is really made by the admission office. I believe they consider if a student, of course, has their high school diploma in 15 credits. I think that's usually the dividing line for transfer status, but you could certainly confirm that with the admission office.
Awesome. Thanks, Val. I'll answer this quick question. So do students in the honors program register on July 26th as well? So that depends on if you are a transfer student or if you are a first-year student. Those are the 2 days that determine your registration. So if you're a transfer student and you're in the honors program, but you're a transfer student, you'll register on July 24th. If you are a first-year student and you're in the honors program, you'll register on July 26th. So yes, still register at the same time as others. Okay, we have a couple more questions about students already having questions regarding what classes to take, wanting to know like what they should register for, and how they should contact someone. Val, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So I'm going to give a few different components that can help families capture this information. First would be the series of videos that Mel had mentioned. So that talks a fair amount about first semester courses. Students, this varies a little bit if they're a first-year student or a transfer student, but they do receive a lot of guidance in terms of what they should be taking in the first semester. Let me separate out first-year students for now. One of the benefits of the Bentley curriculum is that it is pretty consistent early on, regardless of major. So in the first semester of a first-year student's studies at Bentley, the courses that they're taking are focused on core curriculum requirements that by and large are the same regardless of major. The primary exception to that would be if a student's taking a math class in their first semester, they would need to take Math 131, which is Calculus 1, if they're thinking of a math major. So for us, this would be data analytics, actuarial science, and mathematical sciences, or an actuarial science minor, because of the prerequisite structure and course structure for those programs. But other than that, the curriculum requirements are quite similar. And so what this does is it enables us to give general guidance to first-year students. There might be some tailoring done if the student has prior credit that's impacting, what they have left to take at Bentley. So if the student looks at those videos, they'll also be pre-registered for 2 courses. That's also explained in the videos as well. And then if they have follow-up questions from there, we're going to be hosting a series of Zoom drop-ins, essentially, the week of July 17th. And that becomes a great opportunity the full week before registration for new students to connect with an advisor and ask more specific questions if they feel like their circumstances have not been captured by the videos. But we do really encourage them to watch all the videos first, because chances are good that many of their questions will be covered there. Transfer students, it's a little bit different for them because they do have very specific combinations of transfer credits. They're coming in probably further into their studies than a new first-year student would. And so they end up getting more individualized guidance just because it's a necessity to help make sure that they're taking the appropriate classes in their first semester, and that's communicated via email.
Awesome. Thanks, Val. I do see some questions coming in about where can they find the videos? Can they start watching the videos now? So I know we mentioned this towards the beginning, middle of our time together today. The videos will be sent in an email from our office, so from Academic Services, to students after the 4th of July holiday. So please don't be looking for them right now. They will be coming to you right in early July, but after the holiday. It will be sent to students in a link in an email, and then they'll also then be able to access these videos from our general academic services website. So no, the link is not posted yet. You will not be able to watch them yet. You'll be able to watch them in early July after we send an email. So I just wanted to indicate that part. And then another quick question was, are parents able to receive the monthly newsletter as well as our students? So for academic services, no, we do not send it to parents and families. Our newsletter only goes to students. And you'll actually see that moving forward, a lot of information just get sent to your student. So I always encourage parents and families in supporting other humans and adults to have a conversation with your student that's at Bentley and check in with them and say, hey, what's coming up? What do you have next? Any exciting plans? How are classes going? And start having those conversations and kind of share, that you are there to support them, even if you might not be actively on campus with them. But that is information that we only share directly with the student. Val.
Mel, before we move on,
Oh,
I
yeah.
just wanted to talk about one other thing that might be helpful for families who are interested in some of the information that's in the newsletter. The
Yes.
university's academic calendar is publicly available on the website, and that typically contains some key academic deadlines each semester that can be helpful for your students. So we had mentioned earlier the add swap deadline. There's a withdrawal deadline. It will have the first day of classes and the last day of classes in the semester, what the final exam period looks like. And so that might be a helpful resource for family members who are interested in having some more information to support their student.
Absolutely. And if any parents and families are on social media, on the screen right now is our social media. We are not really as popular on Twitter and Facebook anymore. We really are focused on Instagram. So if any of you have Instagram, that is an open account, so you can follow Bentley Advising. We also do post reminders about events, important dates, as Val was mentioning, on our social media as well. So you'll be able to see those there.
And I just wanted to offer up as well that on the orientation website, so if folks are like, where do I find these direct links? If you go to bentley.edu/orientation, there are direct tabs that will bring you to the academic services page that Mel referenced, the general page that has some of this content, and then also a link to those academic calendars. So those are great resources so that you can engage in some of those conversations with your students as well.
Awesome. Val, another question for you is there a two-part here. First off, someone's wondering if there are midterm exams and final exams, or only one or the other, or how that works. And then thinking of exams, someone also wants to know how many hours of personal study for each hour of class is recommended.
So I'll start with the first one. So midterms and finals very much varies based on the course. Some courses by nature tend to be more exam-based, right? So the student might have 3 primary exams throughout the course of the semester, and the faculty member would space those out, and the 3rd exam would be the final exam. Some courses tend to be more paper, project, group presentation based, and they may not have the actual final exam. It might be a final paper that's due at the end of the semester. It might be a final presentation that students need to do. When students start the semester, the syllabus that they receive for each course should outline the schedule for the term, when any exams are. I think what we tend to see, particularly in the fall semester, is depending upon the structure of the course, that students might have midterm exams anywhere in the month of October. Again, depending upon how the course instruction navigates the content and when the faculty member feels like that it's a good time to measure students' learning. Sometimes there might be a week in the term where it is like midterm week for that student, and they do have a fair amount going on. And again, it could be a combination of exams as well as papers and presentations. And then for other students, it is more spread out. And so it doesn't hit all at once, but it might mean that for the better part of a month, they're moving on from one significant deliverable to another. So definitely varies by course. And students should receive that information at the start of the semester. We talked earlier about the add swap period at the beginning of the term. It's the first week of classes each semester. This few days can become a really beneficial opportunity for students once they have the benefit of the syllabi for all of their classes to take a look at overall, given the 5 courses that they have, what's the flow of their semester like in terms of exams and papers and projects. And then if a student has any concerns about having too much hitting at one time, particularly given whatever else they might have for commitments outside of the classroom, then that might be a situation where a student revisits one of their courses. Challenge with that, of course, is that they won't know exactly what they're swapping into and what the specific schedule for that is. But sometimes kind of the workload, how it plays out over the semester might be a reason that a student revisits one element of their schedule, again, based on course availability at that point. And then in terms of study time for each hour of class, this goes back to that 2 to 3 hours outside of the classroom for every hour that the student sits in the classroom. So our classes typically meet twice a week for 80 minutes per session. Or we do have, as Mel had mentioned earlier, some double block classes where the class meets once a week for the entire time. And so if you extrapolate that out, again, for every hour the student is sitting with their classmates, receiving instruction from the professor, 2 to 3 hours of work outside of the classroom per hour that they're sitting inside of the classroom. So it tends to be about 30 to 45 hours of academic work per week would be the expectation. And again, that can ebb and flow based on where we are in the semester and the nature of a course. But that's kind of the general guideline.
Thanks, Val. Right now, I only have 2 questions left in the Q&A. If people have other questions, feel free to drop them in here. One question we have is, are classes during registration filled on a first come, first served basis? So to answer, yes, there are only a certain number of seats per class. Of course, we can't really estimate what classes are particularly going to maybe be filled first, right? It all depends on kind of the topic, the class, the section based off of the day and time. If we could guess this, we would. There's just no way we can do that right now. So that's why earlier we mentioned kind of some backup classes. So yes, you might submit a registration and get 4 of your classes out of 5, and then have to go back and kind of look to find a different class to add to your schedule to get you to the 5 academic courses to be registered. We talk a lot about this in our videos on our webpage, on the new student advising and registration site. So you can definitely kind of view that. We walk through, like, if you don't get a class for registration, what do you do and kind of where do you go from there? So we walk students step by step through that, again, showing screen recordings and things too. So these videos are not all just us sitting talking at students. We show presentations. We have step-by-step walking a student through how to actually go through registration. So all of that stuff will be able to be found on this site that will be going live in January. And then another question about the sites and the site and the videos. Will January students have access to these videos? They won't be getting it right now in July. This is really only focused on kind of fall information. January admits before their registration in January will also then be given their own specific site and will be able to view those videos at that time. If we gave them to you all now, you would probably have to rewatch them come December before registration. So we don't want to overwhelm anyone with those now. We will share those later on, the closer we get to your registration time. Val, a couple questions about the honors program I was hoping you could answer for our friends. So one is, if a student's in the honors program, are there different classes that they can take and how would they know?
Great question. So on the site that we are referring to in all of the lovely videos, there is a video there that is specifically about honors program requirements, and for students in the honors program, which honors courses they should be taking in their first semester. Essentially what it is for this first term is they'll be taking an honors section of FDS 100, that Falcon Discovery Seminar. They'll be taking an honors section of EMS 101, which is our critical reading and writing course that all students take in their first semester. And there will also be a bit of guidance if a student happens to have prior credit for EMS 101, kind of what they would do instead. So that full video is on the first year students section of the site. And then there's a slightly separate video for transfer students who are joining the honors program. And again, their information will be provided in a much more tailored way because just of some of the complexities involved with having more transfer credit and coming in later in your college studies.
Awesome. Since we're talking about honors program, we have another honors question. So can you join the honors program later, or do you have to join as you're entering Bentley?
So students who were not invited into the honors program as part of the admission process do have the opportunity to apply. They have completed at least a full semester at Bentley. I believe their GPA must be at a 3.4, and they need to have at least 2 full years left of studies at Bentley just to be able to complete the necessary honors requirements. What I would recommend is that they have a conversation with the director of the honors program before that time, just to learn more about it, ask any questions that they might have. And then they essentially submit some documentation like an essay and things like that to talk through their interest. And that will be outlined. It's in our annual academic catalog. We're in the process of updating the catalog for the 23-24 academic year, but there's a whole section there called how to apply.
Awesome. Thanks, Val. I know we have a few minutes left. So another question says, if considering a language course, should the student have completed the placement exam before registration? If you are considering taking a modern language course, on the Modern Language Department's website through bentley.edu, they do have placement kind of surveys, exams for students to take if they're unsure of what level they might be in. So if a student maybe has taken French classes in high school or at a previous institution, if they are a transfer student and they're unsure maybe what level at Bentley they would begin at, they could certainly take that placement exam and it would be able to give them a better understanding of how the Bentley modern language levels work here. And then they would be able to appropriately register themselves for one of those classes. If students are maybe confused, or maybe they're just curious about how exactly that works, again, the Modern Language Department website on bentley.edu has a bunch of information, and they can also reach out to the department themselves if they have more specific individual information, just because sometimes it depends on a student's background and what they're coming in with. So any questions about modern language classes, what level students should be, their experience with prior languages before, all of those should be directed to the Modern Language Department. Val, I feel like I'm giving you all the honors questions, but another one just came in, so we're throwing you another one.
Okay.
What are the benefits for students to be in the honors program? Or where should they go for more information about the honors program if they're curious?
Well, the university website certainly has information about the honors program. The things that come to mind, for students who could benefit from the added rigor and challenge of an honors course honors program. I should mention that for students in the honors program, it is not all of their courses that are honors. It's like 9 out of 40 courses that they would take at the honors level. But those classes tend to be smaller in terms of the number of students enrolled. They tend to be more seminar style, tend to involve a lot of conversation and expectation that students come to class prepared and willing to engage in that conversation. Students who are in the honors program, as they head towards junior into senior year, are required to complete a pathway project, which becomes a great opportunity for them to research an area of interest. and spend some significant time digging deep into that topic and then presenting their findings at our undergraduate research event at the end of the academic year. And then the other piece is the honors program has a lot of fantastic programming throughout the year. A lot of it is social in nature, but what they're doing is really forming a community for students in the program. Now, certainly there are many other opportunities for students to engage in events on campus and connect with other students. But I do think that this becomes, a nice little subset of kind of how students are engaging on campus if they're in the honors program. Having those events and having that camaraderie with their students who are also in the program can be a nice benefit in addition to whatever else they're doing elsewhere socially on campus.
Bonnie Lynn, I know we're almost on time. I was wondering if we had time for one last question.
Of course, one last question sounds great.
Perfect. I actually want to throw it over to Mia. Mia, if you can maybe give any advice that you have to new students thinking back to your first registration at Bentley, like, is there any advice that you might have for our new Falcons joining us in the fall?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing I definitely would recommend is going into the registration process with backup classes. I know I definitely I was scrambling a little bit because I didn't have backup classes planned. So every registration I've done since, I've had backup classes. So I know I'm fitting the requirement and I'm not just throwing in a random class just to make sure I have enough classes. So that's one of my biggest recommendations. I know you guys already mentioned that. But then for future registrations, I would definitely say use your degree works and go in for like the long range plan. That really helps like build a foundation moving forward and knowing which classes you're supposed to take. So, and checking in because I had major, minor changes. And so making sure I still fit all the requirements and I'm getting everything done so I can go abroad, graduate on time, and not be stressed out my senior year or anything like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Mia.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to give one more thank you to Val and Mel for joining us today. This was such wonderful information I feel like I learned a lot through this process as well. So really appreciate the time and effort that you've put in to put together this presentation. As a reminder for students, families, support folks, you will be receiving this information. Well, apologies. Students will be receiving this information via email. So please make sure that you are checking that Bentley email. For our support folks and our family members, we will be providing some additional resources in our July newsletter, which will be going out on July 5th, and that's coming from the orientation team. So please take a look at that. And of course, we will provide this recording on our Bentley orientation YouTube channel. So if you'd like to go back and review it, please do so. Again, you have many, many resources out there. So please make sure that you're taking advantage of that. Your students are taking advantage of that, and it will help to make this process even smoother. So thank you all so much. Take care, and we'll see you in the next Falcon Live chat.